Today is July the 21st, 2015. My name is Tanya Finchum, along with Alex Bishop. We're with Oklahoma State University, and today we're in Yukon, Oklahoma to speak with Loraine Harris, and this is part of our Oklahoma 100 Year Life project, so thank you for having us today. Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in Sweetwater, Oklahoma in 1914, April 17th, 1914.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister and three brothers living, and a brother and sister deceased when they were infants.
And where are you in the order?
I'm next to the last one.
Next to the last. Mm-hmm. And what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a farmer, my mother was a housewife. She did everything there was to do on the farm. As well as I have always said, I've done everything there is to do on a farm. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, describe the house you grew up in.
Up until very recently, it was still standing out 3 miles north of Sweetwater. It's a 4-room house. I don't know how in the world we all lived in it, but we did. And we had orchards and vineyards, and we raised a lot of vegetables and all of our fruits and all that sort of stuff. And had a herd of dairy cattle.
So did you have to help milk?
Oh, I was milking before I was old enough to go to school.
Really? And what other chores did you have?
Oh, I did everything there was to do. Take care, feed the pigs or feed whatever there was to be fed, shuck corn. And shell that. My younger brother and I did that every afternoon after school. And we'd just shuck corn until they'd put the corn through the grinders to where they'd take the corn off the cob and shell it. Corn shellers, what they were called. And we did that after school. And we were there until I was through the 4th grade, I guess. And my dad's health gave way. And he thought if he could get back to Arkansas that he would recuperate. That didn't happen. My mom couldn't live in the lower lands of Arkansas, so we came back to Oklahoma and built a new home in Tillman County. And I finished junior high and high school in a little town north of Frederick called Manitou. And then went to I had a brother-in-law that was determined I was going to go to college, and the boys could look out for themselves, but I was going to college. And he financed my college, and I in turn repaid him when I started to work.
Where did you go?
I went to Southwestern, got my degree, first degree from Southwestern. I have hours in OU and OSU both. And as I've gone to school all my life, and I've kidded and said I've had enough hours for a doctorate. All the things that they wanted you to take when we were teaching, everything that came out new, we had to take a course in it. And so I've gone to school all my life.
What grades did you teach?
I taught 1st grade. I had high school majors, economics, sociology, history and government. Never did teach either one of them. Well, I taught economics one semester. Our principal died, and I was the only one in the building that was qualified to teach economics to the 6th grade class. And I did that one semester and thoroughly enjoyed it. But that's the only time I ever taught my high school majors. I went back and got my old marriage certificate the summer, second summer after I graduated. I finished, I went 33 months straight, just one day. And got sick on rhubarb pie from the tin pan that it was cooked in. And that's the one day I missed in 33 months going to college and worked every day.
Wow. And have you had rhubarb since?
Oh yeah, I have rhubarb in my freezer right now. I can make you rhubarb pie very easily.
Well, back in high school, what year did you graduate?
33.
33. Did you have a favorite subject?
Oh, I always loved history, but I just liked to read history. and I've always enjoyed history.
Did you play any sports or?
I played basketball until I got to, well, I played as a recreation in college. I was too small to play on the teams. But I played basketball through high school and as a recreation in high school, in college.
What position?
Forward most of the time.
That was when it was,
When we had the divided courts.
yeah, by 3 or whatever.
3.
Was it a dirt court or?
Well, I played on a dirt court, but after I got into high school, we had the inside gym. But in grade school, I played it on a dirt court.
And the uniform, what was the uniform?
Yeah, we had uniforms. In fact, they were pretty nice. And they were white trimmed in purple. I remember that. And yeah, I enjoyed that. My dad died when I was sophomore in high school, and Mom stayed on the farm with us until I finished high school. Well, I guess he finished too. He finished the year after I did, and then she sold the farm and moved to Sagar, Oklahoma, where my sister lived, and lived there. She lived independently, as I always have. That's why I'm out here, is because I refused to live with either of my sons. And I didn't want to burden them with me, or I didn't want to burden myself with them. And
Well, when you finished college, where was your first job?
at Sweetwater, I went back and taught 3 years out there. And enjoyed it thoroughly. And then I went with my roommate to Garber, Oklahoma. She was going up there to interview for a teaching position, and I went with her. And I interviewed while she was visiting with the high school principal. She was a business teacher, and I visited with the superintendent. And when we got through she got through with her interview, and I got through with mine. He hired us both before we left. At Garber, and I taught there 2 years, and I married while I was there, and we bought our first home in Enid, Oklahoma, and I taught in a small school on the edge of town. It was kind of a religious school, only one religious school I ever taught in, and
What was the name of the school?
Reynolds, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I only had about 12 to 15 students most of the time. It was kind of a neighborhood affair. Mm-hmm. And but we did everything everybody else did. We had a Christmas program and for the community, and with 15 kids, that's a pretty good chore. Mm-hmm. And
When you got married, did you have to quit working?
oh no,
Was
I didn't even slow up.
No, but sometimes we've heard that you couldn't teach if you were married.
Well, no, let's see. We kept our marriage a secret for, we married in April, and then we announced our marriage after Thanksgiving, I think. But I went ahead and taught after, in the same grade in the Garber second year, okay, after I was married.
How did you meet him?
I met him when I was in college, and we kind of kept in contact off and on through the years. And then when I went back to Garber, he was deliquidating banks. He worked for the State Department, and he was deliquidating banks, and we met again, and he was around there. Oh, he worked for the state in Enid, I believe. Yeah, that's what he was doing in Enid. He worked for the state, and he continued to work for the state there. And I taught in this small school 2 years, I guess it was. And then we went to Wichita and went to work in the ammunition plants. He worked for Boeing, and I worked for a parts department. And I did final inspection on trainer planes as when we were in Wichita. And he was drafted from Wichita. He went from Wichita into the Army. And I stayed on there as did final inspection for that department for a couple of years until he could live off the Army camp. And he was on the cadre. He was an accountant, and I made a cook out of him. And he cooked in the officer's mess for 4 years in Camp Walters, Texas, near Temple, I guess it was.
You went to Wichita before the war?
Wichita, Kansas.
Before the war
Yes,
started?
I worked in the plants production. As I said, he worked for Boeing, and I went on the line riveting, and then I was only on the line a short, less than a year, I think. They moved me up to inspection, and I asked why that I was taken off of the line and put into and trained in final inspection, and this was because you have a college degree. And
So you were a Rosie the Riveter for a little while?
yeah, I was. Not too long, but they took me off the line and trained me then to do final inspection on their planes, and then I sold them to the plane producers. And we just did the planes. Our company just did the body of the plane, the small planes. And I did final inspection by using a dentist mirror a lot of the time because you couldn't see around the rivets in some of the places without putting the mirror on the other side. And so I learned to do that. Then I went from there to Ponca City and helped set up a plant there, and and trained the girls in the inspection field there. And
You must have been very good or liked what you were doing or something.
I always enjoyed what I was doing, and I was an ear reader, I guess. I enjoyed staying busy and learning new things, and so I went from Ponca City to the Mineral Wells where my husband was at Camp Walters, and I wouldn't teach in schools down there because I wouldn't walk off and leave a teaching position in the middle of the year. So instead of teaching, I went to work in a dress shop. And I worked all the time over there in a dress shop, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. And our oldest son was born in Texas. He's just had his 70th birthday, and he is a retired teacher. And did all his complete career in one school system.
Wow. That doesn't happen too much these
That
days.
doesn't happen off on Sherman, Texas. And he went right out of college at teaching in Sherman. And then he was head of the PE department in junior high. And he taught PE, physical ed. And helped build a new building, the physical ed, new high school building there. And they let him assisted some of his opinions on how the PE department should be set up. And so he was a wonderful teacher. Did a good job.
Well, did you go back into teaching
Oh yeah.
after the dress shop?
Yeah, after we came back to Kansas. We had bought a house in Kansas and put his mother in it while we were in service. And then we came back to there and sold our house, and he had connections in Wichita, and he went into the Federal Land Bank. And they, after some training, they sent him to Bonita, Oklahoma. And his first office was in Bonita, in the Federal Land Bank. He put in about 20 years in the Federal Land Bank. And I taught all that time. I taught 36 years.
Wow. In Bonita or other places too?
In Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma.
Various parts of Oklahoma. I taught at Sweetwater and Garber and Enid. Then we came back to Benita, and they couldn't get teachers there. And they had to have, that day and time, they had to have so many accredited teachers, degree teachers, in order to qualify for their kids to get credit for their high school graduation. And my neighbor was on the school board, and he, of course, knew I was a teacher. And they couldn't get teachers enough to give their kids accredited. So they agreed to keep my son if I would teach, so their daughter could graduate. And that was in 1947. I enrolled 68 first grade students in that year. And of course they had to divide them down, but I still had a room full of kids because they just couldn't get teachers, qualified teachers at that time to take care of them.
Wow. That was right after the war, too.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you retire?
I retired in 78.
The education field changed quite a bit during those 30-something years.
And then I volunteered. I started immediately volunteering, and I volunteered in the hospital in McAllister for, I think, 7 years. And I did on the front desk in one of the hospitals. And then in 70, I started traveling. After I retired, I had another high school teacher friend, or a teacher friend, and we traveled together for several years. We visited the northeastern states together, and we visited Canada. And I've been in, I think, 44 of the 48 states. Not been through some of them, just driving through, but been through them. And Canada and the Holy Land. And I visited, I think it was 6 different countries while I was on that trip. We were 10 days on that trip to the Holy Land. And I think we were in 6 different countries. Some of them just going through, but we were in there. And I know we were in one town now, and the hotel where we were staying was just a block off of where the prostitutes were. And so a group of us decided we were going to walk up the street and go down the street where the prostitutes were. And we had a Methodist minister in our group. And he was fooling around and let the main body of us get ahead of him. But we already him coming down the street in a dead run. And he says, I thought I better get up here with a group to verify what I was doing, because I'd hate to have them report to my group that I was visiting in the red light section. So I was caught visiting in the red light section alone, so he had to get with us.
Your husband didn't travel with you. It was your friend.
My husband passed away in '67, and so I did my traveling after that. And but he was not a traveler. We did some traveling. We did some traveling together, but I did most of my traveling after he passed away. He had a heart condition. And I've been widowed since that time.
Well, you've lived in quite a few places in Oklahoma.
I've lived pretty all over Oklahoma.
And you kept up with friends along the way?
Yeah, I went back and visited my high school, closest friend in high school, after my husband died, and I was starting to visit. I went back down there, and they're of course all gone. And I don't have an awful lot of friends left, frankly. And why I've lived this long, I have no idea.
That would be one of my questions, so I will have to ask. No idea at all.
Well,
Have you eaten your vegetables?
Well, what's your secret?
yeah, I've had that question 1,000 times. I don't have any. I started out at 3.5 pounds. I weighed 12 pounds when I was a year old, and under 100 pounds when I got out of college. And so I've never had a weight problem.
You were a 3-pound baby.
3.5 pounds.
Were you born at home? Midwife or a doctor?
A doctor.
Were you a preemie to be that?
Yes. And my doctor named me. He wanted to name me Mary Magdalene, and my mother wouldn't let him. And so he named me Mary Loraine. And so I carried that name.
Where would you keep a baby that small? Did they put you in the crib?
Well, if you, my story of my life says that my first cradle was my dad's boot box, and from that to a dresser drawer. And of course, Mama's carried me around until I was a year old at 12 pounds, not very big. And of course, she had a number of people tell her that that was one they wouldn't raise. And I guess I've been one of the healthiest. I have never been ill enough to go to a hospital.
Wow.
I've been for different reasons, broken bones and that sort of thing. But I've never been ill enough to go to a hospital. And my doctor I have one appointment a year with my doctor, unless I need her. And I call her if I need her. Then she checks me out. She says, "Well, you're a miracle."
Aren't any medicine?
I take very little medicine. I take 2 light medicines for high blood pressure. And in recent years, I've had to take medicine for elimination. And that's principally what I take. I take occasional Tylenol. But I take 4 little pills a day. 2 for my high blood pressure to keep that regulated, and then for my elimination problem.
And do you eat pretty much anything you want?
I have a lot of indigestion. I've had it all my life, and I have to be kind of careful about some foods I eat. I eat very little meat, and I was interested in your comment on people our age eating little meat, and I never eat a whole serving of meat. Not I'll eat 6 or 8 bites, and that's the content of my meat eating, and that's mostly chicken and fish anymore. A little beef, no pork, other than ham. I will eat ham occasionally, but no pork other than ham. But I've had a little indigestion problem all my life. Nothing serious, but enough to be aggravating at times. But
Are you a vegetable eater then?
I eat lots of vegetables and quite a lot of fruit. I eat juice and vegetables for lunch every day and drink beet juice with my meal at noon every day.
Well, when you were younger and your mother was doing the cooking, would you have meat?
Oh yeah, we always had meat. She had to feed 4 men, my dad and 3 boys. And I used to tell my younger brother his stomach had to be, his stomach that food had to go to his legs because his stomach couldn't hold it. all he ate.
Did she do a lot of canning and
Oh yes, we
putting up?
can. The first thing I bought when I had my first salary check was a pressure cooker. As I was in 4-H when I was in school, and I sponsored it and taught it when I taught at Garber. I had 4-H. I had 4-H over there. So I bought my first pressure cooker. My mom had pressure cookers. Hers over 7 quart, mine over 5, and mine had top of the street along, and hers was that had the little deals that you just had to screw around, seven or eight little deals around the top that you had to screw every one down to hold the pressure. She canned beef. I never did canned beef, but she did. And she'd can a quarter of beef at a time. And I was a kid that the neighbors would get together and kill a calf and divide it in quarters. And she would pressure her. She'd stop all night and cook until, of course, then we didn't have refrigeration to take care of it. And
Where'd you put it?
we had a concrete cellar, and it was shelled, and we had a bed down there, and but shells on both sides of it, and so that just fit the different size fruit jars, the quarts, the half, and half gallons, and you just slide them back in there, and she had enough fruit and vegetables to last us a year.
But she had to be organized and determined, didn't she?
And I came up that way.
You said you had orchards, is that right?
When I was a child, when we lived at Sweetwater, we had an orchard. We had currants and dewberries and 2 different kinds of grapes. And we had white and purple grapes, those. And any number of different types of peaches, pears, apples, plums, several different kinds of plums.
Plums in Oklahoma?
Yeah,
Wow.
I loved them.
That was before global warming. You had water, a little bit of rain.
Yeah, we had a sandy soil out there. And it didn't require as much moisture as a lot of the soils did. But my dad had a section of land out there. And it was all pretty sandy, and as I said, I can't remember a time they didn't have a herd of little Guernseys. And as I said, my younger brother and I made pets out of them, and we were both milking them before we were up to school.
Did you give them any names?
Oh, we had them all named. Every one of them had a name.
And did he farm with a horse and plow?
Yeah, and I drove a cultivator. My younger brother and I would drive the cultivators from one end of the roads to the other, and my dad and the older boys would be hoeing at the end of the rows, and they'd turn our cultivators for us. We weren't big enough we drove teams of mules, and we weren't big enough to turn them at the ends of the roads. But we could control them one end to the other. So in turn we could do the cultivator work, and my dad and the older boys did the whole work.
And the girls had to work right alongside the boys?
Well, my older sister was, my sister was the oldest in the family, and she was away teaching school and going to college and teaching. So she wasn't home much after I was any size. So she was the oldest of 7 children, and I was next to the youngest. So I didn't really know her until after I married. We didn't have anything much in common until after that.
Well, she went into education too.
What were holidays like at your home growing up?
Oh, we had our regular Christmases. We didn't have Christmas trees because, in the little country school I went to, they took a dead peach tree and decorated it for our Christmas tree at school because we did not have evergreens in Western Oklahoma. And we didn't have a Christmas tree in our home because there wasn't room for it. But we did have a Christmas and a Christmas dinner. My mom was an excellent cook, and I learned from her, plus the 2 ladies I worked for in college were both German women, and they were both excellent cooks. So I get the benefit of 3 good women in my cooking ability.
Well, what was your favorite dish?
I bake pies. I don't guess there's any kind of pie I haven't baked. And I still, it got out around here somewhere that I bake pies, and I still bake some here for people, but I put a good price on them so I don't have too many coming back for seconds.
Make your crust from scratch?
Yes, I still do.
What's the secret ingredient to a good pie crust?
2 cups of flour, 4 tablespoons of Crisco, and I have a little glass that I measure my water in, and ice water and a dash of salt. And I made those last week, and I have them I baked them, put them in the pans just like I was going to bake them, and then freeze them. And it takes me about 30 minutes to come out with a soft pie.
Mm-hmm.
While my crust bakes in the oven, I cook my filling. And I can come out with a pie in 30, 40 minutes.
Wow.
What kind of filling do you usually do?
Coconut cream is very popular. And then I have invented one. I cannot remember that I ever had a recipe for this. And just used a regular cream filling and added 3 tablespoons, rounding tablespoons of peanut butter and vanilla flavoring. That makes a delicious mixture. And it's called peanut butter cream pie. And I can't decide whether I ever found a recipe for that or whether I just cooked it up. And anyway, it's my son's favorite pies, soft pies. And I make a regular pie. You're talking about rhubarb. I cook my rhubarb into a sauce, and I make a regular cream filling and put it in the crust. And then I'll take the rhubarb and go around the outside edge of the pie and put a layer of rhubarb that far around. And then beat the meringue and put it over all of that and brown it in the oven.
That sounds good too.
It is good. And
Are your recipes written down somewhere, or are they all in your...
most of them are there. I do have a recipe cabinet, and occasionally I have to refresh my memory on something that I have made, be sure that I get all the ingredients in. But I thoroughly enjoy my cooking. I enjoyed cooking. Of course, I don't do much over here, but I still bake pies. And my kids, any of them that come, expect to have pie when they get here.
Even today?
Even today. Last week I had my oldest grandson and his family are missionaries in Kazakhstan. And they are in the States for 3 months furlough. So they spent 2 days with me. And we had pie. They had pie. He had told me he was visiting someone that had been in Kazakhstan out, I think they met them in El Reno. They came in from Elk City, I think. And they met them in El Reno. And I had gotten them reservations in the motel in Yukon hotel. And but then I had pie. He had told me to go ahead and play my games. I play games here. On Mondays, I play canasta at 12 o'clock, and we play about 3 hours. And then I play bridge at 6:30 in the evening on Wednesday. And I play bridge 2 and 3 days, 3 times a week, and different games. I don't play on Saturday, and I don't play on Wednesday. Other than that, I play a game of some sort, 1 or 2 every day. And then I'll fill in for anybody that needs help here. The first night I was here, my son and daughter-in-law got me all set up. I knew exactly how my furniture was going to fit in here. And we brought it in and set it down. It's sitting right where it was set when we put it out, because there's no room to change it. And but after they went to their room, they were playing games over in the game room in this building. I went over there and they found out I played games and they wouldn't let me come home. Says, we may need you. I played cards the first night I was here.
How had you learned to play bridge?
I learned to play bridge in 1933, first year I went to college. We did not have tables in our rooms, college kids, big enough for that sort of thing, so we played bridge on our beds, 4 of us, and we played out here. And I learned to play bridge that way in 1933.
That was during the Depression.
Oh, yes.
What was the Depression like for you?
Well, living in the country, we had, it didn't affect a lot of us as much as it did those people that had to go to the grocery store every day. And as I said, we grew so much of what we ate. So I don't think I realized, and then we had our dairy cattle, and which meant a cream check every week. And in fact, when I was younger, my dad picked up neighborhood at Sweetwater. When we lived in Sweetwater, he had a truck, and he picked up cream for all the neighbors and drove it into Elk City. My parents brought back 100 pounds of ice every Saturday night, and we had ice cream, homemade ice cream. That was our entertainment for Saturday night every week. Was making ice cream. That is during the summer months. And we always had ice cream. We brought in a cake of ice wrapped in a heavy container of some sort or other, and that kept it from melting too fast. Canvas. And
What types of games would you play as a youngster?
well, we did have organized games on the farm. As I said, we made pets of all of our animals, and of course we had cats and dogs that we played with. We had bulldogs; they were special with us. And well, in western Oklahoma, at Sweetwater, my dad had hounds because there was a lot of coyotes in that area, and I can remember them. The coyotes would den in that soft soil, and my dad and the boys would find a den somewhere, rather they'd dig them up and they'd pick up the young ones and their pelts. The boys would take them and they'd get, I think, maybe $1 a piece for them, and they did away with the pups and took the scalps in. The government paid for that sort of stuff, and that was a interest for them because Dad would give them whatever they got out of it, you know, and the 2 older boys. So that was. But we rode horses. We had horses to ride. Our horses were saddled, and I ridden the horses off, kidded my sons and told them I cut my teeth on saddle horn. And but we always had, and I've ridden ever since I can remember. And I love horses.
Was that how you would get to school in your early
No,
early
we
schools?
didn't. We lived within a mile, a little over a mile or a mile and a quarter of our school when we were starting to school. And the older boys, of course, had to put up with us first year until my younger brother and I were able to manipulate that plow by ourselves. And so we went to a one-room school there, and until I was in junior high school when we moved to Tillman County, I went to small town school. And I went to grade school 2 years. I guess I did the 7th and 8th grade in country school, one-room school, and had my first man teacher. I know in my 7th and 8th grade. And then we both were driving. Of course, we had Model T, and my younger brother and I were both driving when we were still in grade school. I learned to drive. My older brothers had cars, and they had to drain the radiators every night because they'd freeze if they didn't. And we'd get to drive the cars around the house. Yeah, they had to drive around the house. And my younger brother and I'd get to drive their cars around the house if we'd fill up the radiators.
Yeah.
And so that's what way we learned to drive. And we were both driving when we were in grade school, junior, 7th and 8th grade.
Wow.
And then, of course, when we started high school, then we were able to drive ourselves to school. We were 3 miles from the high school we went to, so we had to drive when we started high school.
What would you take for lunch?
Oh, Mom always had meats. We cured our own hams, killed hogs and cured our own hams, so we always had our own meats. And a good lot of the times we'd have whatever meat she was cooking, our sandwiches would be made of that. And of course we had chickens and our own eggs and that sort of stuff.
Did you have to kill the chickens yourself?
I have.
Do you have a method?
We had to wring their necks.
Yeah.
And then dip them in boiling water to show where to loosen the feathers and pull the feathers off. And yeah, I've done that a lot.
And did your mother sew?
Oh yes. She and my sister both were good seamstresses, and consequently I didn't learn to sew because it was easier for me to mop the floors or do the ironing and let them sew, one or the other or both. And I didn't learn to sew until after I started teaching. And I learned to sew on my own, more or less. I knew enough about it from watching them that I could carry it on myself. And
Did they make clothes for the boys too? Or just
made
for the
shirts
girls?
and clothes for the little kids, of course. I know my oldest son was a redhead, and I dressed him in white. And I made both his pants and his shirts when he was little, because I like to dress him in white. And he had a peaches and cream complexion with his red hair.
And how did you keep those whites white?
We had bleach. Of course, Mom used lye a lot. I didn't use it much, but she did. I used lye in her boiling her clothes and the black pot out in the yard. She did. I didn't do that. I've had a washer. Well, my mom had a washer too when I was in junior high and high school. She had Maytag, and of course I had one when I was started housekeeping. I had a Maytag.
That was probably a happy day for her when she got one.
Oh yes, she was glad to have it. That was true.
Did she quilt?
And I quilted up until I came here. My friend that lives here in the Cove, she and I lived in Moore at the same time, and we belonged to the same church. So when I came into the church, well, they wanted to give me the women's head of the women's program, and I wouldn't take it. I said I'll co-chair it with somebody, but I will not take it on my own or by myself. So she had been chairman of that group, so she and I co-chaired the bazaar for our church for 10 years. And I came over here in November, and they came in January. We're still friends and do a lot of things together yet.
What year did you come?
I came over here in 09.
Oh no.
In November 09. I drove until I was 95. And I came over here and got settled in, and I gave my car away. I didn't think I needed it for keeping up a car. And so I gave it to my granddaughter. And
Well, when you were quilting, did you have a favorite pattern?
I know I chose some patterns. I got, you could get, when I started quilting, you could get, and I bought one early, a little table that broke down in pieces, and you put it up together, And I could, you had different methods of fastening your quilt onto the frames. And, but I did a lot of quilting when we were, I made baby quilts when we were co-chairing the bazaar over here a lot. So I made them every year, and I quilted up until I came over here. But I can't quilt, I couldn't quilt anymore, so I've lost the use of, part of the use of my right hand. But I don't hurt. It's, I have very little pain. I've had very little pain in my life. But and why I've been so healthy, I don't know.
It's riding those horses,
I guess. That's part of it.
being outside in the fresh air.
I've always walked a lot. I've walked a lot. I walked around this three or four times before I'd quit all the time when I first came over here. I don't walk that much now, but I walk somewhere every day. I walk back and forth to lunch every day. And then usually, if it's too hot or too cold to walk outside, I'll go over here and walk the length of this building back and forth until I get tired of walking. But I still walk somewhere every day.
That's good.
Yeah, it's kept me going. And then I exercise 3 times a week.
What type? What type of exercise?
Stretch and strengthening. Debbie, well, you didn't meet her, I'm sure, but she sat right beside where I sat today. And something was said about the type of exercise we're doing. They're amazed that I could do some of them that I do. Squats, for instance, that came out, a headline in the paper over here, 100-year-olds and still doing squats. And so one of the girls said something to her one day this week when we were exercising about, she keeps her eye on me. I know she does. She doesn't try. She tries not to do it, but I know she watches me to see how I respond. And she said, do that anything anybody else does over there. And we'll stand in front of our chairs to do the squats. And she says, in case we don't make that squat, we can sit down. And so she watches to see that I make that in case. But I can do that. I take our elbows and put them on our knees and do this opposite knees, elbows on opposite knees for 25, 30 times. And I know she was commented on the fact that I was able to do that. But I do anything anybody else does. As far as exercise is concerned, if I get tired, I don't go to the bars and do that. I really don't, because I've had surgery on my left knee and hip both, and I don't want to put my weight on my leg. And they do exercises up there on one leg at a time. So I don't do that because I just don't want to put that extra strength on those 2 operations. Because I'm able to get around, and I'm thankful that I'm able to get around. And
Well, how much sleep a night do you get?
I love to read in the middle of the night. I may take an early nap, but I seldom ever go to bed before midnight. And I read a lot.
Well, what type of things do you read?
But I may take a nap. I take a nap almost every day, sometimes in the day.
Well, what's your preferred reading at night?
Oh, I read everything that's in front of me. I just finished reading, I don't know if I told you or not, Bill O'Reilly wrote the Killing of Christ. I just finished that. And that, I relived my trip to the Holy Land when I read that.
Or you've been to the Holy Land?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And I relived my trip to that when I read that book. I just finished that a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I just took it to my friend, and I brought it back yesterday. I still have it back here. I haven't taken it back to the library. And because I haven't decided that I'm not going to read it again, so I haven't taken it back. But I read everything. I read biographies. I like to read. And we have an excellent library over here. And I have anywhere from 1 to a dozen books up here all the time. If I pick up one I don't like, I put it out and read it and pick up another one. And
What do you generally like to read? Fiction, biographies?
I read a lot of biographies and I read a lot of fiction. I have several authors. I must have 6 or 8 authors that I like to read, and I principally follow them.
Who do you read? What type of authors?
Oh, I can't tell you the names of them. There are many of them anyway. But I know what they are, and I can find them. But
That's what counts.
That's all that counts.
that's what's important.
Yeah.
But
Have you always done that, or just picked it up?
oh
since
no,
you're-
I've always read.
Always been a reader.
I was thinking the other day about the first book that I read, Man Without a Country. I mean, you probably never heard of the book.
What was the name again?
Man Without a Country.
Man Without a Country.
And I remember that. I was still going through my mind. I have to read at night when I go to bed. If I don't, my mind just starts working, and I go back in history, and I go back some part of my life will come to my mind, and I'll lay there and relive that. And I get as wide awake as a hoot owl, and I have to get up and read to put myself back to sleep. So I'll be sitting here reading a lot of times anywhere from 12 to 1 o'clock, or sometimes I'll get up at 3 or 4, and I'll be wide awake and can't have something on my mind. I can't go back to sleep, so I get up and read until I can go back to sleep, and read myself to sleep again.
And then get up at what time?
I wake up at 7 o'clock almost every morning. I won't miss it 15 minutes.
Don't watch much TV, television?
Yeah, I watch a lot of the game shows, and that's principally what I watch beside the news. And animals, I like to watch animal shows, and especially if horses come on, or cattle. I love to watch herds of cattle on. So there's 1 or 2 shows on there that has to. Well, there's one where they train horses, and I love to watch that. And but this guy's a rancher, and he trains horses as a profession, and I like to watch him. He's on every day, and I don't watch him every day, but I do watch him, and it's interesting the things that he does in training horses. He sees them at different stages, and then they'll bring there's one show that I watch where they bring herds of wild horses in and put them in corrals, and they'll pick them out and sell them and all this sort of stuff. And I enjoy that. But I never get bored with myself. And I do enjoy being by myself, but I enjoy friends too. As I say, I play some sort of games almost every day, and sometimes twice a day. And I always meet people when I enjoy meeting people. And my exercise instructor, she says that I do my exercises most of the time I'm smiling.
So humor and laughter has been important.
I wear a smile more than I do a frown. And that's just been part of my life.
Well, you mentioned one child. Do you have?
I have 2 sons.
2 sons.
One of them was in medicine, and he got hurt. And he has been in terrific pain for a good lot of his adult life. And right now he and his wife both are unable, but they're able to take care of themselves, which I'm thankful for. But I came here because I did not want to be responsibility for either one of them. And I've always been independent. And I like it.
Come a long way from the 3.5 pounds.
What was it like to be a mother?
Oh, I love my kids, and I enjoyed them. And my older son, he's 11 years older than the other one.
Oh wow!
They just kind of happened. I was married nearly 6 years before he was born, and then I had him by myself. Pretty much his dad was on the road a lot, and he did whatever I did. If I was making a bed, he helped make it too, because he was not a lot of help at that time, but he helped to do it. And we're still real close. He calls me every Saturday morning, and they come up about once every 2 months, something like that, and spend the night, he and his wife. And my other son lives over in Norman, and he was in X-ray and nuclear medicine, and a 300-pound man grabbed me, started to fall, and he's X-raying, and he grabbed him and twisted his body, and the doctors have never been able to find the source of the pain that he has. It's in a nerve, but they can't find it. He's had open heart surgery twice. And they're trying to find it. They haven't been able to find it. And he'll find something that relieves him a little bit, but he's never been without pain. And
Did you ever go on family vacations?
Up until my son, the youngest son, was in junior college and in high school, we would go on vacations. We principally travel. We went to the southern states, and he was just under where he could drive. He wasn't quite old enough to drive, and he was bored to death. And because he was at that stage where kids get bored pretty easily. But his dad and I went on several vacations when he was younger. And as I said, I had my older son by myself, get a lot of his life until the other one was born, because his dad was on the road a lot. And he went to school where I taught when he started school. In fact, I had him in my room the first year, which I didn't do the second time. And
Why is that?
well, it's just something that any teacher should never do, is to have her own child in your room. But at that time, I either had to have him in my room, or else he would have had to go to another part of town to the first grade, and it was inconvenient for both of us. And he didn't want to go, and I didn't want him to go. But I pretty well lived with my kids as they grew up. Whatever I did, they did. And
How would you discipline them if they needed it?
I had a ping pong paddle. Made a lot of noise. Didn't hurt much, but made a lot of noise.
More for effect. It was more for effect.
Just picking it up, it had a lot of pressure. But it always laid on top of the refrigerator. I knew where it was.
They didn't try to hide it?
They couldn't. They couldn't reach the top of the refrigerator.
Well, was church an important part of?
I was very active in church. I guess I have taught every Sunday school class from kindergarten to junior high school. I never would go into high school to teach. But I think I held every office in the Women's Society and did about everything that there was to do in those things. And
Well, as a child, did you go? Was it important to your parents?
oh yes, I went to Sunday school. My dad liked to sing, and he led singing a lot. And I went to Sunday school. I became a Christian when I was 11, and a cow pasture in a tent. And then I joined the Methodist Church when I was 16 in high school. I was baptized in the city swimming pool because there was not enough water anywhere else to do it. And then I have, from the time I had my kids, I have been active in Sunday school. And so as I said, I think in the children's department, I probably held every office there was to hold from kindergarten through junior high.
Did you sing in the choir?
I did sing in the choir when I was in college.
Can you carry a tune?
Well, I used to. I don't know that now I could.
Did you play the piano?
No, I didn't have any music ability, and since I worked all the way through college, I had no opportunity to have any kind of lab classes or anything of the sort, or take any extra lessons or anything. And so no, I'm not gifted. My gifting is cooking, and my gift.
What was the favorite thing your mother cooked for you that you liked?
Well, she was an excellent meat cook of any kind. She had lots of experience, and she was an excellent meat cook. So I learned to cook everything there was to cook. And I made my first biscuits on the stove door because I was big enough to reach the top of the cabinet. So the stove door, where it opened up, a coal stove that we used, wood or coal, either one in, cook stove. And the oven door would open out straight. And I had my pan that I made biscuits in on that door because I couldn't reach the top of the cabinet. It was big when I made my first biscuits.
What did you use? Flour, I know, but what do you remember the rest of the recipe?
Oh, well, in that day and time, you put flour in a pan, and I had made a hole in your flour and put your ingredients down in that, and you worked your dough up in that to the point where you could handle it, and then you lift it out of that and put it on a flouring board and roll it out and cut your biscuits. Only I got good enough that I could squeeze them off and make them almost as perfectly as if I cut them. And I did a lot of that rather than going to the trouble of flouring a board and rolling them out and cutting them.
Well, so it would be like plain flour?
Oh, we grew our own wheat when we lived in Shelby County, and took it out and had it ground, and we had our own flour. And cornmeal both. And when I was a kid, we had our cornmeal. We didn't grow corn in Shelby County.
And then baking soda and salt, or?
Baking soda and salt, and then a lot of times our shortening would be separated cream because we had plenty of that. And of course, Mama made her own lard too. But a lot of times we would use just separated cream to make the biscuits. A cup of cream or something of that sort. Half a cup of cream along with our baking powders and salt or soda. If we used buttermilk, we used soda instead of salt. And I can hardly remember a time when I didn't make biscuits.
Maybe for your kids?
For my family, when I lived at home with my parents. That's when I made my first ones, and of course I always made biscuits. I made biscuits for my family after I married. And dinner rolls, I love to make dinner rolls. And I made those up until I came here. They were very good.
Making me hungry. I'm ready for some chocolate pie.
Okay, I did that too.
Did you do any icebox pies, or was it mostly baked?
Yeah, I did icebox pies. Used the graham cracker crust.
Is there anything left on your bucket list that you want to do and haven't?
Well, there's not much. It's within my ability that I haven't done, I guess. I still like to cook, and I occasionally fix a meal for my family when they come. And pies, especially what I do. I occasionally, and I make angel food cakes, better more than the other kind of cakes anymore.
I don't know if we asked, but did you ever expect to live to 100?
Heavens, no. Never occurred to me.
And how did you celebrate your 100th birthday?
Well, I had all my family here, and I had a niece that came from the state of Washington, and I don't have a very large family, but I had all my family here, and we had a dinner over in the dining hall. They have a private room over there, private dining room over there. I had it reserved, and so we had private dinner over there. We took pictures, And then I had a one friend that lives in Maine. She spends her summers here. And she has a gorgeous voice, and she sang for our program, and she still sings for me almost every time she comes. In fact, she's here now. And
What did she sing besides Happy Birthday?
I really don't remember what the songs that she sang for. She sang several, so I really don't remember. What
You didn't choose them, she chose them?
No, she sang. No,
Yeah.
she chose what she sang. Mm-hmm. But she chose, something that was suitable for the occasion. And her friends are the couple that I was speaking of that came here shortly after I did, and she and her mother and I worked together in the church. And that she is their oldest daughter, and her husband is a college professor in Maine, so he teaches up there about 7 or 8 months out of the year. And they have a home there, and then they have a house in Norman for the 3 or 5 months that they're here. But most of their parents live here. His mother lives in Moore, or right now she's living with them. But she and her husband, as long as he lived, they lived in Moore. And so they consequently came back here, and they still come back.
You get to hear her sing some.
Uh-huh. Oh, she has a lovely voice. And
Well, when history's written, what would you like it to say about you? How do you want to be remembered?
well, I think I am a people person. I've always loved people. I love to be around them, and I make it a point to be around people. And the fact that I think I was a good teacher, I think I was a good mother, and I think I'm a good friend. And I enjoy doing things for people, and I share my cooking with, almost every time I make a pie, I share it with somebody. And in fact, the husband of this couple that I was speaking of, I share almost every pie I bake with him. She's a diabetic and doesn't do baking. So he gladly comes over and picks up my pies. I'll call him and tell him, I'll say, well, I've got a half pie over here that has your name on it. And it won't be 10 minutes till he'll be here to pick it up. And they're a real happy couple, and they're nice to be with. And they're especially nice to me. We grocery shop together about every 2 weeks at Walmart. And in fact, we were going today and it rained us out. And so I think I've always been a congenial person, so I have mixed with people well, and with all ages. So I just love life.
Has contentment come easy?
Mm-hmm. And after my husband died, I never dated, I never had a date, I never wanted to, I still don't want to. And I've been very independent. Decided to drive across the state of Oklahoma. I do it. I lived at McAllister for many years, and I had a brother that lived at Amarillo, and I thought nothing of driving from McAllister to Amarillo up Highway 66 by myself. I always kept my cars in good shape. I'd take them, ride a parent friend that took care of my cars, and I'd take my cars for him to check out before I decided to take off somewhere. I'd leave here in the dark because I knew this area of town. By the time I got to, the country roads, and by the time I got to the main highways, it would be daylight, and I could drive right straight on through the Amarillo.
Did you know how to change your own tire?
Oh yeah, I've changed lots of tires.
It's always a good thing for...
Not lately, but I have changed a lot of tires. And I had the ability to do it if I had to. I haven't changed it in a long time, but... So have I worn you out?
We've worked through our questions. Is there anything else you want us to add before we close?
Not that I know of.
No. Well, it's been great. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.